And now they should be able to hear us. What's up, everybody? And welcome to the final panel of the day. I am delighted to be here today as one of the representatives of the Riot Animation Team. My name is Lana Bashinsky, and I am a lead animator in R&D at Riot Games. And who? Take it away, somebody.
Hello, it's me, Tyler. I'm an animator at Riot. Like a rat, we're rats. Good to be here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Skylar. I'm a principal animator at Riot. I've been kicking around for a long time on League, R&D, all sorts of stuff. So a little bit of everything. That's me.
And I'm Brendan. I am an animator on Valorant. I've been with Riot almost a year now and having a blast.
Woo! All right. Well, we are so excited to be here today, or at least I am. I'm speaking on behalf of these guys because I can. To do some demo reviews. We got some submissions through a forum that was being tweeted out by the Anim State channel. So thank you to those folks who submitted. And I think we've only got an hour, so I think we should jump right into it. We're also going to set a timer. I think we typically tend to sort of like linger sometimes and move on a little faster. So to ensure we actually get through as many as we can, we're going to have a little timer going in the background for the reels that we're going to review. And that'll be that. Love seeing the rats in the chat. Can we actually get a rats in the chat for the wonderful group of animators who joined me today, but also for all of the wonderful sessions today, and for everybody who has stuck with us through the whole amount of crazy technical challenges, and what a wild day it has been. And with that, I think we should just power forward. I'm going to switch us over into our two-panel mode here, and we're going to start out with our first reel, which I believe is Julian, right? Right, okay. Got my sync sketch player loading. Okay. All right, so we're gonna do it, I think, the way that we like to do. Remember, rats, you control the volume for sync sketch on your own side or on your own end. So if you need to change your volume, please go ahead and do that. I need to do a quick adjustment to the stream so that I can see the chat as well. So we like to take a single watch through with the volume on, and then we'll mute it and we'll start reviewing from there. Is everybody ready for Julian? All right, let's go.
This is what you are doing. This is what I want you to do. Any questions?
Is there any way I'm going to get out of this with honor and dignity?
All right, Julian. All right. I'm getting some messages in the chat about the lag. I'm gonna see if I can fix it. And in the meantime, Rats, what are your thoughts on Julian's reel?
I think we could. Oh, go ahead.
Go for it, Tyler. No, go for it.
All right, Brendan. Well, I just want to take an opportunity, since it's our first reel, just to revisit some general rules that are kind of good to follow for reels. Short and simple. keeping your best shot first. And some things like the bouncing ball, I think those are good, definitely great exercises. I don't think those necessarily need to be in your reel since you are showing body mechanics throughout your shot.
Yeah, I would echo what Tyler's saying here. I think that you have a wide variety of things in your reel that span from, the very basic bouncing ball to like some way more advanced stuff. And I think as you're getting into these more advanced stuff, I would consider trimming down the more basic stuff because we already kind of inferred that you would know how to do the bouncing ball just because you're doing, full on walk cycles and run cycles and some pretty cool acting stuff. I think that we could infer that you know how to do that stuff, and showing it might actually hinder. You're just showing more time in your reel that you could be. It could be cut. Having a short reel is also nice.
So if you're looking at Julian's reel and there's a piece that you wanted to talk about specifically, which one would you pick?
I would like this first one. I have a few things to say about this first opening Thor Spider-Man shot. I have some ideas on that one.
Sure. This one that happens right before the credits with the Thor?
Yes.
All right. What are your thoughts?
I think that there's some staging things that could be improved on this one. I think that right now you're kind of showing through the piece you're trying to show the juxtaposition of him doing something like this is what you're doing, and then trying to zip, this is what I want you to do. So I just think that finding a better read of like clarity on this pose of trying to just like maybe open it up more, find some creative solution on how to open and close it more so you can see more of, this is what you're doing, and really have like a clear silhouette so you can really read right away and understand what is happening versus this is what I want, this is what I want you to do could also sort of be, zipped up and have a clear silhouette. So I think that you could improve a little bit your staging on these poses because the story that you're trying to say is cool. I just think that you could stage it a little bit better so that we can understand it first watch round.
Yeah, I think that last pose, especially that you just did that draw over on, is like a very like almost perfect tangent with the ear. And I think even just looking at your compositions and looking at your key poses and checking for things like tangent. A tangent is right when something looks like it's just touching the other thing, even though they're sort of in different places in space. It adds like a little bit of dissonance or uncomfortability to a pose. Thank you for the draw over. I'm working with a trackpad, so I'm not going to do great draw overs for this round. But that's like a good thing to just sort of check for. Like even if you are really well versed in composing shots, doing like a tangent pass and making sure that you don't have any uncomfortable, just barely touching the top of the frame, just barely touching the side of the ear here is like a good thing to check for compositionally.
I wanted to jump ahead a little bit, and first I wanted to talk about a couple things that stood out to me as being very nice. Like I really like this run on Samus here. It it's a little bit more than the standard run in that it has like a nice pumping feeling where like let me see if I can scrub here, where the arms, you notice they kind of like lead the action a little bit. The traditional sort of like poses they show you for a run is to actually have like the arms kind of a little bit behind the like steps, but by like leading the steps a little bit, you get this feeling like the character is kind of like pumping forward with their arms first, which feels really strong and really nice and feels very like appropriate to Samus as a character. And then I think my favorite sort of just shot on the whole reel was this last bit. It's like staged very well, and actually solves a little bit better, some of the problems that were mentioned in the previous shot about kind of getting things out in silhouette. Like this bite is really nice in the way it kind of like comes out and is like staged out open and then closed in and kind of you can see like the whole thing in this like this whole negative space is like open and then like snap shut on the next frame. And there's just like a lot of really cool nice like staging bits there. The one bit I wanted to talk about that I think could maybe be improved was this jump here. Once again, I know this is kind of like a basic exercise, but it is like these kind of things are a great way to kind of show off body mechanics in a reel, which is to just take a simple action and try to do it really, really well. And I think this actually is done really well. Like it feels pretty physical. My only beef with it is just from a kind of appeal standpoint. It all feels very like mirrored. Like the left and the right side of the body are like literally overlapping on some of these frames in a way that you can't even like see what's happening. So like this frame's like a great example where both the arms and the legs are overlapping. And I guess maybe I should pick a different color. That doesn't show up very well, red on red. So just by bringing like one of these legs out a little bit from the other one in these moments, same thing with the arms, like bringing one of these forward so that you get this like negative space between them will just help your actions read a lot better, and they'll add some texture to the motion. Like another example is like here you could add some sort of like texture to this action, a little bit more personality, by maybe having like one of these feet touch down. Or let me go back a frame, actually is probably a better.
Can you zoom back out again, Skylar?
Oh yeah, sorry.
No worries.
There we go. Let me go back a frame here. So like here, by having, oh, now it's just playing. Okay, here by having one leg sort of touch first and then maybe have the other one still coming in and touch like a frame later, you can get like a dun-dun, which is a little bit more natural, because like a lot of times in real life, especially if you like record reference or something, it'll look like things like hit pretty much at the same time. But if you look like really close, a lot of times like there is one that leads a little bit or one that falls behind, and those are the kind of things that I think as an animator you want to extract and exaggerate, right, to give it a little bit more appeal. So if in the reference it was like right really close together, making it in the animation will give it a little bit more of a beat and like a syncopated like rhythm to the action that will feel more appealing than real life, because it's not our job to like replicate real life. It's kind of our job to like imagine and make life a little bit more appealing than it is in reality by pushing some of those things. And same thing I think could be true of the arms here, by like maybe having one of these arms be back and one of them a little bit forward as you come through this action can just help make that pose feel a little bit more designed and a little bit less mirrored.
Oh my gosh, man, 10 minutes goes really, really fast. We only have a couple more seconds here on this reel. I don't know how to center it again. Zoom out. Can somebody center it back in the thing? I'll figure it out. Perfect, thank you. But I do want to point out just sort of like about tangents again. I actually love that you put a simple background in. I love it when there are sort of simple background, simple environment things that help tell the distance. Like you could have had this same jump on like a flat ground and it all is like, Lambert 2 and Maya. Even just having really simple colors I think is great. But immediately I could already see like, there's a little tangent right here. And going back a couple frames, there's somewhere right at the very beginning where I'm like, here's another little tangent. And it's like a small thing, but just compositionally, tangents end up happening everywhere because our brains, like, I think secretly always want to make tangents. We always want to make them keys. And so love adding those background elements, but always double check your compositions for that. And with that, man, we're moving on. I feel like this is the hot seat of animation reel reviewing. But thank you so much, Julian, for submitting your reel. Can we get rats in the chat for Julian for that awesome submission? Thank you.
So real quick, as we're transitioning, I like that you are crediting like the artists and everything, I think you could put that in like the description of the video instead of at the end of your reel.
I agree.
That's-
I big time agree with that note. I think credits, having like a separate document that's like a shot breakdown that specifically is highlighting all the different things is like a good pairing to your reel without necessarily having to have it all in the end like that. All right, rats. I think we're heading over to Dylan's reel. Let me know. Give me the thumbs up when y'all are ready. A lot of thumbs up. All right, beautiful. Transition. And I'm going to hide the comments if I can. Great. Make sure that it's all centered. Sorry. And all right, let's play from the beginning. Okay, sound on, let's go. In case anyone's worried the audio's broken, I think there is no sound in this reel.
Thank you.
I love the cartwheel at the end of that. So unexpected. All right, Dylan. Beautiful work.
That's a lot of work.
Whew, that's a long
Lot of
shot,
work.
yeah. All right, who wants to start off with Dylan's reel? I saw somebody had drawn a bunch of sketches already.
Yeah, I put a bunch of notes in here so I can start off. First, I just want to say that like these runs at the beginning, the various like sort of personality runs and walks are really cool. Like particularly this one, it's a nice way to show that you can do like nice walk and run body mechanics. But I like that each of them has kind of like a spin to them. They're not just the normal. It's not just a walk or run. And particularly this one stood out as being really nice, and you could sort of immediately read like the nervousness of this action. And I think the only thing that I kind of wanted to see out of it was almost a fidget interspersed in it, where it's like that kind of frantic look back and forth or something, because it's just so got that feeling that I was expecting to see that, and it wasn't quite there. So that might be a nice little bit of spice to add there. The only other thing I'll say about these runs is that I think you could, in an effort to just reduce the overall time in the reel, you could probably do a few less cycles of them. I mean, really, you only need probably like 3 or 4 steps of each of these to really sell it, and I think there's maybe double that on some of them. But primarily I wanted to go forward and talk about some of these combat actions because I felt like they were good creative actions, but that they were kind of lacking some of the weight and stronger posing that I saw elsewhere in the reel. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about that, particularly this one. Uh, Overall, the action like reads pretty well, but it is sort of fluctuates between being really good poses and then sort of weaker poses that make the action feel a little inconsistent throughout. And so I was really trying to think about how you do this kind of sledgehammer type action. And a couple things that I think are worth adding are here at the beginning, having the character kind of drag the sort of delay the bringing back of the hammer, so they start leaning this way and it takes a minute for the thing to catch up because it's heavy, and then it kind of swings through. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. It swings through back a little bit further. So you swing through, because when you do a sledgehammer, it's really like heavy. I know this is an axe, but it's like basically the same thing. You have to like lever it with your body and pull it around, and you're sort of using your body to counter the weight of that object. And so similarly, you kind of need this upward thrust to get it up over your head. So you can see I'm just like sort of pantomiming exactly what you do when you do a hammer. You do this upward thrust, and then I think that the biggest thing that was just kind of missing in this throughout is that once the weapon is levered up, you really need to get these arms straight, keep them straight until the like switch moment. Because like swinging a two-handed weapon through is all about going from like one straight arm to the other straight arm. That's where like all the levering action happens. And then if any point you're sort of like just like two bent arms, you sort of lost the entire lever of the action. And so you're coming through here, and this part is, oh, I keep clicking off. This part here, that's pretty correct, right? Like this front arm is leading it, it's nice and straight. Same thing here. But then in yours, you get to this point where this pose kind of ruins the levering part of the action, right? Because you crunch them all really up close to the body. There is a point where both the elbows are going to be bent where you're levering through, but it's always going to be out here kind of like around the full extension of it, because that thing is now heavy and it's doing its own thing. Like once you've got it going along the arc, all you're doing as a person is kind of like controlling where it's going to hit. You can't really like pull it closer or push it further away from your body. It's kind of out there at the full extension. And similarly, as it goes through the action, it's going to continue to keep these arms out at full extension. And a general rule of thumb I can say about like melee swing throughs is that your action is always going to feel more powerful when your arm is straight, because it's implying that it's at like the full extent of your range, and they're using like the maximum like lever and power, because you're like moving it the furthest distance from the body, so it's traveling as fast as it possibly can be, right? It's your maximum range. So by pushing the arms out here to get this maximum extension all the way through, even all the way through to the end, like I'd kind of like end it down here with the arm straight, will always feel a lot more powerful than kind of keeping these sort of like bent arm poses throughout. And I think you can kind of see the difference there between the drawings of how much stronger and forceful that feels like. It's almost like driving it into the ground, as opposed to sort of like swinging through and ending in a more sort of like neutral bent pose. And I know I'm probably like running through our time here, but I also just want to talk similarly about one more thing. Same thing through here, like leading the action with the body and kind of dragging the weapon behind and then snapping it out will make everything feel a little bit more powerful and a little bit more weighty. And then the last thing I wanted to say, and this could kind of be like on all the things throughout the reel, is to watch your arcs, because I was kind of tracking the tip of this weapon. And if you actually follow it, it does this sort of zigzaggy, this is like from here, this is like the arc of the action that actually is happening there. And it's a little bit warbly, and it leads it to feel like a little bit unpolished. So anytime you do any kind of a swing through action, try to make sure you're following your arcs. And the last thing, I know I'm talking fast, I got one more though. Or wait, maybe it wasn't on this reel. No, it was on a different reel. I thought I had one more. That's it. At least someone else to talk.
Great notes, Skylar.
Those are great. I also wrote some notes down here, but I'm not sure if Tyler had something to say. But I agree with Skylar on all these notes. So I'm gonna skip to sort of more on my wheel park of what I sort of do a day-to-day basis on Riot, and it's the first person-y type of action. And first person is very tricky to do, and I think you have some awesome stuff here. I just think that it would be cool when you're designing these type of stuff, is like he does have a coin and he's slipping it through his finger, but like it would be awesome that since you're the author of this, maybe just make a bigger sort of coin so that we can really feel the action and we can see, even though it might not be realistic, but sort of this the prop of it, since you're the one creating it, could tell a bigger, funner story if it were if it were bigger. We have a character in our game which has a coin that he flips in his fingers, and his coin is massively, ridiculously big. But it doesn't look as ridiculous as you'd think, just because like it's just better for framing purposes. And last thing I'm going to say is I'm going to echo Skylar's track your arcs on your things, but I'm going to do it on this shot here. So if you track the tip of the gun on this one, for the first person stuff especially, it's things start strobing like a lot if you stray too far. So right here, if you trap the if you go to the tip of the gun and you're following, all this is great, and then suddenly there's a very violent pop to the left, and then it goes back to the right, and then it goes back to the left and to the right. So if you play it through, it kind of wobbles a little bit. So when you're doing this type of stuff, really, at the end of all of it, just sort of go and track your wrist to see if it does any weird stuff, and then maybe the tip of the fingers because it does any weird stuff, and then the tips of the guns to see if it does any kind of in out in out. And what I like to do is I'll actually draw on screen the path that I want it to take, and then I'll just make sure that, if things are kind of straying off of it, I'll just go and intentionally keep them back on track.
You mean
So
like
that's one
physically
tip.
drawing on your screen?
On the screen, yeah.
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 Just making sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
And that's
notes.
it. I'll leave time for Tyler in case he has something else.
We can move on. I don't know if we're over time. I just wanted to briefly talk about overall composition. You're starting with like a walk. I want like first shot, best shot, energy. Then you can slowly dip down. Then last shot, boom, back up, high energy.
Yeah, I agree. We do have a bit more time, and that was, I think, going to be my main note as well. I think even though all of your walks are showing something different and showing off different skills, I think stacking the front of your reel with walk after walk after walk, you run the risk of somebody who may be digging through like a whole big pile. They have 100 million applicants that just applied, and them just seeing, okay, this is just going to be a reel full of walk cycles, and they might just turn it off. I think that somewhat rarely happens, but because of, I think Skylar's note about reducing the loops of how many iteration, like loops of each walk, would really help ease that. But I also think because they're so different, you could space them out a little through your reel and bring some more of that energy earlier. Yeah. If you were to switch this around, Tyler, which piece would you put first?
I think it really depends. They have a lot of variety, but I like the Indiana Jones style shots. I was also curious about everyone's feelings. It's like they have game style animations, they have kind of acting style animations, and they have FPS animations, which seems like a lot of variety. So I don't know how everybody else thought about that.
Oh, that's interesting. For me, I think like the main thing that they're doing is showing off like a like mechanical skill, like a mechanical grasp of animation. And so because it's all related to games, I don't mind the variety. I think typically if somebody has like one little mocap piece tucked in, I don't know, even that I feel like if you're applying to a studio, they typically are using mocap or they aren't using mocap. But in this case, it is all hand keyed. And so I think all the type of stuff that is in the reel would appeal to the studios that they would apply for using this reel. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I don't mind at all like the variety of stuff. It actually speaks to more like, oh, you're not a one trick pony type of thing. So if you are brought on a project that is just doing something, and then eventually the project evolves into, oh, well, now our game is going to have some in-game cinematic things. Well, you have some stuff to show for it. And also it doesn't mean that you'll be applying for the same, like there's only a certain amount of jobs open. So just like tailoring to one, and what happens if that one never opens up a job? So I think just having it's just good. And it's fun to do other shots. It's just, as an artist, it's fun to like experiment other things. So for me personally, I don't mind at all that there's a mix of it.
Yeah. I think that the biggest things that I would typically separate out are like if you have two-dimensional stuff that is like specifically 2D animation. I think the worlds of where you would animate in 2D and 3D are like pretty limited, so putting those in the same reel are pretty limiting. And even mocap and like fully hand-keyed animation, I think sometimes the studios that you might apply to, but I think it's like a closer skill. But yeah, just overall notes on that. We got to move on. We're probably 1 minute over, Dylan. You're lucky. But can we get rats in the chat for Dylan? Thank you so much for your wonderful submission. And let's swap to our next submission. All right, I think we're going to nil next, everybody. Alrighty. Oh no, it started. Wait, stop playing it. Everybody just wait 1 moment. All right, I'm gonna take us in back to the two-pane transition. I think y'all are ready to go with Nil's reel. I'm gonna turn down the volume just a scooch for the first view. You guys ready?
Yes.
All right, let's go. Right. I'm going to cut in for a moment at the beginning here and give a note. I really like this piece that you have with this girl. I don't know the name of this rig. I know she's like Anim Schooler, I Animate's rig. But I think this is a pretty cool idea for a combo, especially like with the little teleport and the way that you've sort of visualized it with a little bit of a blink out beforehand. But even though I think your timing is overall pretty on point for the two sort of sections of the attack, I think you are missing a connecting pose as you come into sort of this top end of this secondary attack. So as she's sort of reeling up here, I think you probably need a couple more frames. Ideally, probably somewhere in between this pose that's at the end of this one and the top of this arc, or at least the arms pointing to where she came from. The pose is so different that even with the teleport and even with like your simple sort of flashing of the character effects, I parse what's happening, but I feel like I felt like that second half of the animation was actually worse than it was because it took a couple views for my brain to really sink in. So even though you're doing a teleport, still having this idea that she's maintaining that momentum. I'm unfortunately on a trackpad, so I could kind of be like, let's see if I could get like a frame here. Like, oh, it's not gonna work. But something that says like the emotion is coming from this direction as she brings these arms up, even if it's just her arms and up her torso, maybe her leg is like a little less like high at the very beginning of this motion, and then the arms come up and the knees sort of continues to crank upwards into that. You'll have just enough of that maintained kinetic energy rather than her feeling like she sort of teleported forward, hit a wall, and now suddenly there's this additional action of her smashing down. Yeah, that was the one little thing I wanted to say there.
Echo.
Go ahead.
I was just going to quickly echo, Lana, your feedback from the previous reel about having like a background or different colors. Because the character is pretty dark and the background's pretty dark, it's kind of hard to see a difference. Like in some of your other shots, you have a lighter background. It just helps read the animation.
Yeah, +1.
Yeah, and for like a lot of things like this, even just having like a simple, like very subtle, like low contrast grid can help understand like the 3D space of it a little bit better too.
Yeah, like a floor.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't want to go and make like a full environment or have like any lighting in there, have like a sort of subtle grid in there can help kind of understand like how the character is like traveling through space.
Right, because is her foot here? Is it on the ground or is it on the floor?
Exactly.
We don't know.
Yeah. I had a few other notes that I had sort of pre-made about these punches. Um, I thought these punches were really nice, but that they felt a little soft, almost like they feel very realistic in that they're like taken from like really tightly from reference. And because of that, they lack a little bit of oomph that I'd expect from an animation. So they feel like kind of even throughout, like that the punches have a little softness, almost like they're getting like pulled a little bit. Um, and so I wanted to suggest to make them a little bit more snappy by actually keeping them more in this wind up pose longer, and instead of having like an in between this like wind up pose and your end, actually like snapping out in one frame, so you get that really strong like jab vibe, and not just snapping out but overshooting in one frame and then snapping back, so you get that snap back recoil of like a jab. Because like when you do like an actual jab, I mean, it's like so fast, it's like one frame out and then you're like pulling back into your guard pose, right? So same thing with this sort of like downward chop, by like delaying the arm, like pushing forward and delaying the arm and then like snapping out, overshooting and then back on that action. You'll get a lot more power out of it. And in fact, if you look at the spacing of this sort of hand as it's authored, like if we sort of track it through space, you actually like ease into the action. Like the spacing gets, let me turn on ghosting. The spacing gets closer together towards the end of your action, which means you're going slower as you reach the end of it. And when what you actually want, if you want to get like a really like hard hit, is that you want to be accelerating. So you want your drawings to be closer together here, and then your furthest apart drawing, your biggest spacing, is going to be between from the pose right before and then to your hit pose. And then if you want it to have sort of like a snap to it, then having a little like overshoot back where you sort of ease back into that action, will give it a nice like kind of snap back to it. So I just think that you could add a little bit more. What's that, Lana?
I was just going to say, one thing I was going to say is like, as it exists though, as sort of like the alternate end of the spectrum, depending on what it is, it feels almost like somebody who's in training, like the softness of it, like depending on, maybe this is like a character piece. I don't think that it was, but alternatively, it would be actually harder, but maybe interesting, like having him like have some personality to it that somehow shows off that he's like the subtext of it is that he's like in training, and whether that's like something you add in the background or like a facial expression, there's a way you could push like the softness, because it feels like, yeah, it feels like reference. It feels like somebody who didn't quite know what they were doing in a way where I thought it was interesting. I think the faster, more realistic like punch solution that Skylar is pitching is probably the most efficient way to sort of like get it to like a really good effective spot. But I do think like where it naturally sits is like kind of a funny space where you could actually go the other direction too if you wanted, and lean like into the soft boy.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if he was like going like like he's like imagining fighting in his head,
or he's like
it could be like funny in the other direction.
Or he's like hyping himself up about it, like, right, okay, yeah, right, and then he's like, oh wait, that was the wrong one. Oh, the other one. Oh shoot.
But this raises a very good sort of point that context matters, and we're looking at this without somebody explaining what it is, and it should be first read, you get what's happening. So if it's even like, if it is a training type of thing, like what can you add in the background? Is it like a bunch of dummies in the background that he's sort of like training around? Like there's some stuff that you can creatively probably put in, and I'm not saying that this is the training piece that he's doing, but I do agree that it could be, but context matters, and we should sort of know exactly what it is on first read. And for me, that's one of the most important parts of animation is readability and clarity. So if somebody can know exactly what's happening the first time they see it, then for me, it's a win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agreed. And if there was some like really violent looking horrible giant thing over here that he's like hyping himself up to fight, the context would be pretty clear that he's like Oh. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else had other things that they want to talk about. I had a couple more though, so
Oh, you go ahead, dude.
I just wanted to talk about this kick a little bit. I really liked kind of how big this was and kind of this end pose, but I felt like you could add a little bit more power to it by like this kind of pose through here isn't really like helping the snap of the kick at all. So by kind of leading with the knee and keeping that toe back, driving up with the knee, and then flicking it out as it comes up through the actual like point where it would be hitting whatever they're hitting. I don't know how realistic that is, but I know that that will like look good. And sometimes that's like better if it just like looks right than whether it's actually realistic. But this flick from the two drawings I do there, where like the knees leading the action and then the toe flicks out, will make it feel a lot more powerful than it actually is. And then the other thing I was going to suggest is you're not really using the rest of the body to help the action much. It's not like that it's hurting it per se, because you are really like focusing on the kick. But a lot of times in an action like this, I like to use the upper body, like an opposite motion from the upper body, to help drive the force forward of whatever is sort of leading the action. So in this case, you could potentially make this feel more powerful by, as this kick is kind of coming up and out this way, you also are driving back these arms as like a whoosh. And so you get these two contrasting actions where the character feels like they're opening up both towards the action and away from it. That helps the like point of the direction of it feel even more powerful, by contrast that there's these other elements like pushing away from it. So that's just sort of like anytime I'm doing an action where I kind of go from like a closed anticipation to like a big open like hit pose, I always try to think about like what can I like drive away from the action to help make it feel even more powerful. Yeah.
Great notes. Any final thoughts on this reel, Rats?
Flash shot happens very quickly. Give the audience just a little bit of time to understand what's happening in the clip. Just give me like 15, 20 frames to have her getting ready for the hit and then exploding. This happens very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I actually have one final note here. Some things, and this is throughout some of your shots, but it's, definitely can see right here. Some of the stuff has a little soft, even spacing, like this knee flopping down here. Just kind of like teeters down, even spacing, kind of slow over there, and just settles. So I think that finding places to where it could be a playful like bump bump and adding more texture into stuff. Like sometimes the posing of it, something in the end, is more important to read, and then just sort of like finding a fun way how to like if it's a couple, it's going out and then into that kind of spacing line, and just sort of like thump and reverbing at the end could be a funner way to end that move instead of just sort of like levering down evenly to the floor. I think,
Great.
yeah,
notes.
that's something that sort of stood up to me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Rats, for those wonderful notes. And thank you, Nil, for your reel submission. We so appreciate you. Rats in the chat for Nil, everybody. Great reel. Great stuff. Our next reel on the list is from Jarrett. Excuse me. I love seeing rats in the chat. I love saying rats in the chat, but even more than I like saying the words rats in the chat, I actually love seeing rats appear in the chat. Feels great. All right, our next reel. Rats, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let's go. The beats. Love the tune skis, Jarrett.
Can I just say that I love the like upbeat vibe as these Halo guys are just like impaling each other.
There's something, I don't, maybe it's just because I'm immediately like, red versus blue or whatever. My brain is like, yeah, that's fun. I'm going to set the timer up. I do want to say one thing about this shot up top, if y'all don't mind.
Go for it.
I think that this shot is fun and it's well done. There's a lot of cool things happening. It feels pretty good. And the only thing that I think I don't love is what I think needs to be like the most satisfying moment. I feel like anybody who's played Halo or anybody who sees that dude holding a crazy sword is like, oh yeah, that guy gonna get stabbed. And it sort of happens like unceremoniously in a way where like this pose is so opposite of this pose that this one that is back here doesn't actually feel like it's motivating the stab. I feel like, you know, his eye line is going way up here, even though like that's just his mask, right? To me, he's like looking away from his target, like he's going into a crazy bloodlust rage, which is maybe what you're going for, but it still feels very unintentional and possibly even like more challenging than it would need to be for him to get this sword from being the end of it literally pointing away from his victim and then through his victim. So even if you were like, okay, let's assume that you wanted the rage bloodlust where his face and chest are, like his chest is pointing like, I'm sorry, I'm on a trackpad, so my drawings are really crazy and I keep accidentally zooming in. But like, it's pointing directly away from the guy he's targeting. I still think, oh, thank you. Yes, that is what I was trying to do. I still think that this arm, oh my Lord, I'm going to go insane, needs to be pointing with the blade with the intent to stab that guy. And whether that is sort of, sorry, maybe somebody can do a better drawing than I am. And whether that's like...
Do you want me to draw the drawing you're describing?
It's back
Go
here
for it, Skylar,
at
go
stabbing, please do. You can see what I'm doing. The arm having the silhouette still coming out away from the body with the nose of the sword pointing towards him, because the sword has such a light silhouette against the dark body of the character in the dark background, you'd still be able to see it. To have it have even more intent, I think you can turn the chest away a little bit, less than you have it cranked like way at the waist, but keep that vision even more out of like a upper 3/4. Keep it so he can pretty clearly still be staring at his target, and you're gonna get, I think, even more of that murderous rage feeling that you might have been going for here. It feels a lot more intentional. It's like a predator seeing its prey. It's completely locked on, and then the impale doesn't kind of feel like it's coming from nowhere. So that's my biggest note. Really love the piece overall. Really fun vibe. Great job.
Butchering.
Thank you.
Lana only looks her enemies dead in the eyes as she stabs them.
If I'm gonna stab you, it's right in the gut, right when I'm looking you straight in the eyes.
I was just gonna say, eyes show intent, so it helps lead the audience to know what's coming next. Because having him just do that, it's a little cuts off guard. You want the audience to understand what's happening on first go, so eyes will definitely help. I mean, I know it doesn't have eyes, but Lana explained everything.
Well, I really like this reel. I think that you have some very strong stuff in here, Jared. I think that these pieces are awesome. Even like just your knowledge of modifying the mocap to make it read better. I think this character walk is very fun. Congratulations on this one. This stuff is phenomenal. This is probably my favorite. The little blocks are probably my favorite stuff. Since you're a lot more advanced in like you got a lot of stuff done here. I'm just gonna give you some noodly notes on a couple of first person things. This hand pose is a little awkward. The left one. If I were showing this some dailies, that somebody would probably say, hey, can we find a nicer pose? Maybe, like your thumb, as you're grabbing the gun, the other thumb, you can see the other thumb kind of design this pose a a little bit better so that it reads better. This first person animations are super hard to make look appealing and nice. And I like that you have it sort of 3/4 here. The staging of it feels correct. I just feel that you could probably do something better with this hand here to make, since it's on screen for the majority of the time, having really a nice graphic read on it as it's sort of doing, because it's not changing at all, it's just following the gun, right? So just having a really nice graphic read on it, it's really going to help you out to sell it. I really appreciate that you're moving the camera as it's shooting. That's a small detail there that could easily be missed, but it really adds a lot. When you're unloading the clip here, we're getting the clip lost in the back of this dude's arm here. This pose is good, but maybe just flinging the clip out sort of here in the bottom so that we don't lose it as it goes out could be it's just going to read better. Or, if it's flinging it so hard, make the clip sort of fly up or something fun, or whatever direction you want to take it in. Just that right now it's sort of just being obscured by the arm. So anywhere but where you have it, I think would work. And you definitely have the skills to pull it off. So that would be something that I'd probably do. And last note on this one, just because it's sort of my bread and butter, day in, day out, things that I do every day, is when he's putting the clip back in, you do have the gun go up as he's putting it in, which is good. It just feels super soft, like it's going in, it's going, and so I'm not feeling it going like, boom, I put the gun in, the clip in. So either, like the clip's there and he jams the gun down and it reverbs, or, you clip it in and the gun goes way further up. So you'd probably, as it's going up here, this frame's good here, right? And then the next one could probably be further up. As you're doing right now, it's just sort of going up gently. It's very soft for the action that he's doing.
It's a delicate
over
reload.
there. That would be, right now it's a delicate reload. But those are noodly notes. Great stuff, dude.
What do you guys feel about the quadruped inclusion? For me, because I'm seeing strict bones, I feel like it should be extremely anatomically accurate.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it is included, the reason that I see this is included is I think Jarrett is telling, at least when I see something that is included in the reel like this, where it's got like all the branding and stuff on it, my brain says this person is showing me that they have worked and been paid for being animated, or being an animator. But I do absolutely agree with you. Like when I'm looking at the quadruped animation, like one of the things that is like a telltale like quadruped thing is that when they put weight on that shoulder, and I don't know like the constraints of what this project was, so you could be there like, I know I wanted to do these things, but it's still on your reel, so I'm still going to talk about it. Is when they put weight on that front arm, when they're carrying the weight, the scapula, I guess it's like going up a little in the sense that it's rotating up, but we're not feeling like the pressure of it actually like taking that weight. I would expect to see like a little bit more of a translate up on those scapulas to show a little bit more of the weight coming off and being on the foot and having like a straighter leg. Like when the weight is on that leg, they likely don't want it bent unless this is like specifically the prowling animation, like maybe they're sneaking around. But as soon as you like have a limb that's bent when you're putting weight on it, it becomes more of a physical challenge. And usually creatures, I think, don't want to like test their, they're not out there doing squats on the Serengeti. So that's one of the things I would look for, is making sure that you get some of those straights in the arms and the scapulas cranking up a little bit when they're bearing the weight. I'm kind of rambling about this a bit. And also, I'm so sorry, Tyler. Did you have something specific that you were going to note about it?
But just for me, it's like the thing that sticks out is, I mean, I'd have to look at a red panda, but like, especially like the hands when they come down and come up, I want to feel fleshy, even though there's no flesh. I just want more motion. It feels kind of stiff.
Yeah, I agree.
Fingertips, right? Like, yeah.
Or, like, even that frame that you just had posed where like the hand is up, like the bones are still very splayed. I would expect like a paw to sort of, oh my gosh, I'm still using this color. I'm gonna bump this up a little bit. I would expect the paw to kind of like come under and be curled. Like that's another thing that happens. Like as soon as they, I guess I don't know specifically how a red panda moves, like Tyler said, but typically I would expect that as soon as you're lifting that foot, they really like flick. Typically with a quad red, I guess a cat, I don't know. I would expect there'd be some like more of a curling action underneath to give that sort of fleshy, that idea that the muscles are tense when they're on the ground, and when they're up, they're relaxed. Again, I think creatures are typically very efficient with their bodies, and so they will relax muscles they're not using sort of as soon as they're not using them.
And you could blame the rigger, but in this case, you don't want to.
I just got the watch buzz saying we hit 10 minutes here.
Right.
Any final thoughts here for Jarrett?
Looks good.
Looks good. We're getting noodly on you. This is a really fantastic reel, Jarrett. Thank you so much for your submission. Rats in the chat for Jarrett, please, everybody. Thank you for submitting and participating in the Animation Exchange 2022. All right, up next we have Emma Kratt. All right. Transition. All right, Rats ready?
Yes.
All right, let's go. That last pose is just so cute. Sorry, I want to look at it one more time.
I'm not synced. Is it playing? Is it real playing?
Oh yeah, you guys. Oh, did I leave the sync? I played it. Sorry. Join sync. Oh, sorry everybody. I played it. We'll play it one more time with y'all. Right. Sorry. Let's go. Is it playing now?
Yeah.
Okay.
As it's playing, I just wanted to give an overall kind of, it's not even a note, it's an observation, and that I'm very impressed with your storytelling abilities. So out of all the reels that we've seen so far, this one has some very excellent spots of like, oh, you're telling a narrative through the actions that you're doing. For example, in this one, this lady's grabbing the stone and she's very happy. You can tell that she's happy, and then something's happening, and oh, what's that? And she's worried, and then she looks up, and then there's this tail. What is this? It's a creature. Oh my God, the creature's pouncing down. Like, there's so much narrative in your stuff, and that is very special. Like, there's a lot of, like, this last shot also, like, it's this girl and she's trying to do, you know, she's practicing her magic, like, thing, because there's a bunch of dummies. Like, we get it right away, and it's really, really cool that you're incorporating so much narrative into your stuff, and that's something that at least in my team we really value high, because if we would pitch you a problem, it's like, oh, yeah, come up with something cool. You can tell us through your reel that you have really cool ideas, and that is super valuable. And that's not something necessarily that can be taught that easy. Like you can teach body mechanics, and you can teach like I don't know, whatever principles of animation, spacing, weight change and whatever. But teaching how to somebody to how to have good ideas is way more difficult. So I just want to congratulate you on your awesome ideas. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if I ranted too long on that.
No, I fully agree. I think especially this last shot with the sweet little witchy girl is one of my favorite pieces I've seen in a long time that does really well combining the physicality of like just general body mechanics with like subtext and storytelling. Okay, so she's like in some kind of school, she's training for something, like I understand that, but this moment where she swoops, she like floats backwards and swoops up on her thing, and then as she comes down, I can't scrub through, but she like uses that as like a little like the thing that you'd see like in a video game or something, like a pole to swing around and loops down across it, is such a cute, interesting moment. Like that's like just like Brendan was saying, like you made a really distinct choice there. The only thing that really sticks out to me about this piece is that screen left leg. I'll circle it because that's the best I can do. Really, man, that leg loves that spot on the screen. I think every time she does something, it sticks almost exactly back at that spot. She throws the thing down, it's stuck. She grabs the rock, it's stuck. She brings her foot up and then glues it right back down to that pose. I like can't stop seeing that foot touching that same spot. So even though there's like really great storytelling, I think it's like you thought like this is the perfect spot for her to be, but like with that rock, what if she spun like a little bit further and did like a couple little shuffle steps on her off foot before like recovering into like a little bit more of a defeated pose or something. I think there's a little bit more variety, specifically with just that foot. That could be coming through this spot, but really beautiful piece.
I have a couple quick story moment notes, just because that's sort of your strongest bit. So I just wanted to comment how to make it even stronger. So I think that this one here is as this all happens very fast. Like this dude gets his hat stolen and he's right away into the thing. Like I think that it'd be cool if like it'd be like, oh, what's happening? Oh no, she stole her hat back. There's like a beat missing here of him sort of realize he does look at her as she's in the air, but I don't know, something here feels a little fast to me personally. Not sure if it's
I agree. He's got lightning reflexes, if that's how quickly he's ready to.
right. This one here also is pretty cool. I would even push it further, as like since it's a cartoony character, he's doing his thing and then he sort of goes down and then flops up here. And you do have this plant a leg and not move it syndrome going on. Check out that right leg.
He's heavy. He's made of rocks.
Anyway, here I would really kind of ball up even more so to expand to this awesome pose over here. I think that it's almost there, but it'd be cooler to have it even go from a more contrast of having it sort of more balled up, even splayed out a little bit more. I think it could be pretty fun. Last thing that I was gonna say was this is a really cool piece. I just think that this guy, for some reason or for something or another, does not look as menacing as it could be. So maybe it's just the thing of putting the camera lower down. So instead of booming it up here to reveal him, maybe you can just tilt it up so that he's in a more of a lower angle, so he's more menacing in this shot here. So he's even more menacing, sort of like we're looking up at him. So he's more menacing. I think that that could make, for some reason, he looks kind of comical and not scary, even though his model's very scary. But I just think it might be either the posing or the framing of the camera.
I honestly
Slightly. Go ahead.
I honestly think it's a little bit in part due to like happenstance between the motion that he's doing and the music choice, where he kind of looks like he's grooving to your real music. It looks like he's like, I'm gonna eat you, bah, 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 and then he dives down on her. There's like a bit of like a grooviness to him that I feel like how much motion he has, rather than being like a still kind of predator and like juxtaposing her kind of being like my rocks. He's really wiggling around on there, so you could keep him a little bit more steady before he pounces, and it'll feel a little bit more violent.
Cool, and I've talked through all this reel, so I'll shut up and let the rest of the crew.
I just wanted to add, I mean, I'm mostly just adding on a little bit to what was said before, but I wanted to talk about like the timing of some of these things. And when I'm talking about timing in this instance, I'm literally talking about like the timing of your story beats, because the story beats themselves are like generally good. And I think you got a lot of notes about that. But from a timing perspective, if I play this, I think you just linger too long on some of these beats. Like this beat of her sort of like getting worried, if I sort of act that out and I'm like, I come in, I do this with the crystals, and then I'm like, right, like it takes me about like a half or maybe even a third amount of the time that it happens on screen. So I think like just kind of taking a pass on like literally you sort of doing these actions and trying to feel out like how close to your frames actually match that might help kind of hit some of the story beats in like a little bit more of a natural way. And then similarly on this one, it has some of the same things where she sort of does a lot of waiting. Like she gets into a pose and then like waits. And I think it's more noticeable here at the end where she's like, she kind of comes in, looks at it, waits a pretty long beat there. Then she sort of comes up, throws this down, waits again in this pose. Then she throws the rock, waits again in this pose. And what it does is it sort of gives the whole animation a feeling of it's like got almost like a beat to it where you're waiting the same amount of time on every pose. And what I would try to, and when I see something like that, I always try to think like, well, how can I make it more of like a syncopated, like more of a musical rhythm where I can get like dun da da dun 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 by like connecting actions and trying to wait the longest on the actions that I want to have the most impact. But if it's just something where like a good example of where you could maybe connect an action is like she throws down the broom, strikes like an angry pose, then goes down and picks up the rock again. Like maybe she throws down the broom, picks up the rock, is like, ah, and then throws it. So you're combining like two of your actions so you don't have to do like a whole nother beat by like throwing it down, looking around, grabbing a rock, getting up. And so anywhere where you can kind of like combine them and make things a little bit more fluid so it doesn't feel very like beat to beat to beat to beat will just make it like more appealing. It's not that what you have is bad. It's just one of those things where it could be like more resonant, I think. And I try to always, when I'm doing any kind of animation that has like a bunch of beats to it, I try to in my head literally do like sounds to it, maybe not like music. But if I'm even when I'm doing like let's say an attack combo for a character, it's like da dun da da dun dun, right? Or swish 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 swish, right? Like that's always going to be more interesting than swish 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 swish, right? And so always try to have that like derpy swishy wishy doopy whoopy in your head, and I think your animations will always benefit from having that.
And honestly, I think if you like have an idea of what it is and you're able to verbalize it, but you struggle to like get your timing just right, record yourself with the onomatopoeia. Say the swishes out loud, and you can pull that in as a clip in your timeline, and you can animate to your swishes.
I do that.
Yeah, I do that too.
Well, and Lana, I've also seen you do stuff where you like do it with your like hand, even which I think is like a very easy and fun way to just be like, if you have a character like moving through the scene, you know, she sort of like swoops up to this whoop,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whoop, right? Like that already there. You can like literally record that, and that can be like the timing and spacing for your character. And it's surprising how much you can get from something like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any final thoughts? It was like we really whipped through that one. So quickly, any final thoughts for Emma before we move on? All right.
Awesome stuff.
Awesome stuff, Emma. Thank you so much for submitting. Rats in the chat for Emma, everybody. Awesome reel. Really fantastic ideas and great storytelling. You love to see it. We're moving on to our final reel of the day. We got Chris in the house, y'all. I'm going to make sure I'm joining the sync this time. Alrighty. I'll push this over. All right, rats, let me know when you're ready to go.
Good.
Wonderful. We're gonna play it through once with sound, so make sure your levels are all reasonable, and let's go. Short and sweet. Love to see it. Who wants to talk about Chris's reel? Can I say something that's, sorry, this is like not related to the reel, but it's just like a personal thing, and Chris, don't take this the wrong way. And like more like Nintendo, don't take this the wrong way. I just never loved the design of the ice wand. Never loved it.
That's your comment?
That's my comment. Anyway, sorry. Somebody else.
Chris,
Get that.
if you use the ice wand, you nixed.
Please tell Nintendo to fix the ice wand. That's Lana's feedback.
Review canceled because Nintendo designed that ice wand. I'm just kidding. Who wants to talk about Chris?
I want to give an overall positive comment on Chris's arcs. I think he uses his use of arcs is very good. I think that he keeps track of a lot of arcs. Oh no.
What?
Oh, I think he was getting a call.
Oh.
Yeah, good. I'm back.
Okay.
I think that all this stuff is very fluid, and you can really keep track of like the blade and stuff like that. I think that's all. It all reads very well. Same as Mr. Goku here in his hands, and you can really kind of track the arcs of the swords and stuff. And I think that you got that one. You got that one pretty high up in the level of your RPG. You got a lot of points invested into arcs, and it's showing. I like it.
I was gonna just say from a real standpoint, these two shots, they like look really good, but they're very like low quality compared, like literally visually low quality compared to the rest of the reel, in a way that actually makes it a little bit hard to kind of see them, like particularly when the characters overlapping some of the like architectural elements. So that's something that, like, if you were gonna ship this reel as it is, I would say like trying to re-export these shots so that they feel like they're on par with these other ones would be helpful. And I know this is like kind of a stupid tech thing, but like turning on anti-aliasing in your viewport will help a lot with what you're seeing here, because it'll make all these like jaggedy edges go away. I'm not usually too much of a stickler about like play blasts. In fact, like I think play blasts are generally fine, but make sure you're at least taking advantage of the things that you can do in the viewport that are like easy, like making sure that the resolution is high enough and that you have anti-aliasing turned on so you don't get these jaggedy edges, and everything will look a little bit more clear. What I really like about these shots, though, is that we were just talking about that sort of like syncopated rhythm, and this is like a really good example of that, where this character is like whoop, bottom, bah, right, and so it has this very like this nice texture to both like where the timing, like the literal timing between where the character hits. So there's like syncopated timing across the whole animation, and then there's also like a like syncopated like spacing of the actual motion, right? So there's like the total timing it takes to get from here to here is one thing, but then also it's like hanging here in a way that kind of defies the physics a little bit, and then going really fast through the fast parts. So it's pulling like the slow parts to be slower and the fast parts to be faster in a way that makes both the spacing and the timing feel really textured. And it just sort of oozes some like natural appeal because of that. So when we're talking about that, that's kind of the sort of thing that I'm trying to get at. And I just really love this the way this feels played at full speed feels very like springy. And I was actually scrubbing through it trying to figure out exactly what it was, because I would have instinctually probably hit this and on this frame already had that like pushing down, but there's something about the character like hitting it and then the frame of it down, and then they're just like flying up on the next, or like a couple frames later. I don't know, something about that feels very right when played at full speed, in a way that I'd have to kind of like think about why it works. I'm not quite sure why it works. I just wanted to call it out because it was like a cool, nice little springy bit there.
A lot of RPG points.
The arcs are really good across this whole reel.
Spent into the timing as well. Yeah, Chris, you have an amazing body of work here. I actually can't nitpick too much of it. I think that it looks great. There are a couple places where I think that here's one of them. When the sword comes back, it does sort of be a little bit even, which doesn't. It's cool because it's a variety. So we're going from like quick to even, but for some reason this one feels like it could probably like drag a little bit back and then settle because it's such a heavy sword. I think that this you have an opportunity here to do add a little bit more weight to the sword in this one.
I also think it's an opportunity to consider other motions than swinging it back exactly the way it came. Like if that's like a pretty chunky sword, like thinking about how like your idle pose has it all the way back, would he drag it all the way back around in front of his body, or would he maybe just like step through the rest of that spin and have the
and leave it there
and leave it behind him? I think.
Oh, that would be really cool. Sort of like boom, leave it behind, and then he just rotates and grabs it. Oh, that'd be so juicy.
I think it would be something that's a little bit more unexpected of a motion, and still gets you back into that idle pose. The only
now I want to animate that.
Yeah. I think the only pose that really sticks to me, like through your whole thing, where I'm like, that particular pose feels a little bit off to me, is this first one, unfortunately. Sorry, not the first pose, but in the first piece. This one here is so over the top in a way that it doesn't necessarily feel intentional. Again, you block her eye line, and so she's kind of staring straight up, and she's really almost like contorting her body. And because she's using this magic, I guess she's smashing the ground with that one. I guess like it's such a delicate little thing that her smashing the ground, it doesn't necessarily feel like her eye is so far from the prize when it's like sticking straight up in the air like this. I almost feel like you'd want a wind-up pose that's like a little bit more similar to this. Like here, I can clearly see what her intent is. Like she's gonna smash that thing on the ground. She's gonna do something on the ground there. But through here, like this, I feel like is a better pose. That if you were to live a little bit longer in this pose and sort of have her step up back from here rather than switching feet to go all the way back, like let her just go from this sort of squatted down pose into something like this that is like a lot clearer of a moment. You could have a big change of shape from the wide into like the taller wind up and then smashing down again, versus the like sort of overly cartoony, fully bent back over the wand is like completely 180 degrees from where it needs to go. There's like a little too many things that are like slightly out of place for what the action entails. And if you wanted, I think you could even lean more into the fact that it is a magical wand and not like some hammer. And rather than having this moment come from a physical force like this, you could have her doing like some big wind up and like sort of smashing it down, but smashing it down where she's like casting something, and that's what's hitting the ground to cause this to happen. Would feel like a little bit more thematically grounded versus the physical smash of the wand.
Another thing I was gonna just add to this piece is that I think could help too is, especially since it's the first thing on the reel, I'm like a little bit more critical of it. If you kind of like shuffled things around and had like a stronger piece at the beginning, I might not be like so want more out of it. But I think that if you did what Lana suggested and kind of came up and this was your sort of wind up post that action, I think it's a great place to add some like secondary action, because like this whole thing is like very simple. She kind of like walks up, anticipates, and then hits, and there's not a lot of like there's not anything in there that makes it really like stand out to me. And just having something simple like, hey, she brings it up and does like a little twirl with it, the wand, or maybe the way she brings it up is like delicate in some way, or or even like maybe her other hand is out like this in a way that's like as part of the action. There's like a million little things you could do there, and any one of them would take it from just being like a held pose to like a pose that now has like a little flourish of secondary action to it that like tells me something about the character, because she sort of comes in this like almost like pouty pose, and I expect her to do something like sassy. And not that like sassy is not like a thing that I'm like, don't be, like sassy isn't always the thing I'd go for, but because she is like this, having her do something that's a little bit more, has a little bit of attitude to it, or even has some anger to it if she's like grumpy, would sort of reinforce that idea, at least from what you're telling me from frame one of this animation. So
Yeah, let's be honest. We're just grilling you because you're using the ice rod there. That's
yeah,
the
I mean, in
only.
fact, it'd be like a fine animation if it just had a different weapon in
Let
it.
me tell you, this reel would be flawless without the ice wand. All right. Well, the timer just buzzed, and so I think that's it for
Final comment on Chris. Final comment on Chris's reel here, really quick. It looks like you had a lot of fun making it, and that is by far the most important thing for you as an artist. Like the whole thing, I can see you having fun, clicking keys, hitting keys. Like this looks like a ton of fun to make, and that is an automatic win. And anybody who would hire you, it just oozes up that you're enthusiastic for what you do, and that is a great positive to have in your reel. The end.
I fully agree, and I think that is a wonderful note to end on. Rats, first of all, rats in the chat for Chris. Wonderful reel. Thank you so much for submitting. I really appreciate everybody who took the time to submit. We love that you are a part of this community. Rats in the chat also, of course, for the wonderful reviewers. Everybody want to give a little sign off quickly of where people can find you online?
You could find me in the Rats Discord occasionally.
Love it.
Hey,
I am Brendan Animate on Instagram.
yeah, I'm on Instagram too, but now I'm blanking on what my Instagram name is, so you probably can't find me.
Hey!
Isn't it just
I think it
Sasura?
might be S. Sura.
Yeah.
Probably. You can find me. If you search my name, Skylar Sura, Instagram, I'll come up eventually.
Wonderful. And I am Lana Machisi. You can find me at Latai and I. The old Moobot there has our backs and links all the things in the chat. Thanks all you rats. I have to take the stream out for the end of the day, so you feel free to get gone. But thank you so much for your support today. Very wonderful.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody. All right. We're kicking it in to the outro. And everybody, I'm gonna set up my webcam here so we can stop running Discord, and maybe we'll get a few frames back on the stream. Bye, Brendan. So bear with me while I swap out the old webcam. Transition. Oh, you can see me from this morning, trying to figure things out. Webcam, is it plugged in? Is it? Who knows? Oh gosh. Okay. Can everybody still hear me in the chat? You know what? This is what we're gonna do. I love it. Okay. It's problem solving all day, and that's what we do here. It's just the problem solving. We're gonna pop this out, and then we're gonna sign off after this chaos. Okay. Whew! We did it. We did it. Wow, what a time. Okay, I'm gonna get everybody in here so that we can say bye to everybody. Okay. All right, get in here. Those tunes. Okay, we got it. We made it. I'm taking the old headphones off because I don't actually have to listen to anybody anymore. We are at the end of the day. Woo! This is all the folks who are hanging out in person for the Animex 2022. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who stuck with us all day online. You guys can get closer. I'm sorry I'm maskless, but get on in, crowd around.
Sorry, crowd.
A huge thank you at the end of this day for Mike Jungbluth and Julie Kaw, the other co-planners for the Animation Exchange. They do a huge amount of work. We met like every second week for the last several months. So thank you so much for all of your amazing work and support. We missed you here. Next year we'll all be here together in person. Thank you to all of our wonderful speakers today for, again, powering through the technical challenges, for everybody in person, rolling through the punches and moving the laptop and all of the associated peripherals around 3 times today. A huge thank you to our sponsors, Steamroller Animation and Riot Games, and all of you for being a part of this amazing community. It is so wonderful to be able to interact with you and have the support, and in the face of even any sort of challenge, whether that be a moment in the year where I just tweet that it's rough to be in the games industry sometimes. It's works a lot of work, challenging to be creative. Like seeing the support of my colleagues come together in those tiny moments and these bigger ones when we definitely did not drive illegally onto Market Street and an army of people came to unload a car that was refusing to start, of all the crazy, way too many snacks that we have here. It's a wild time, and I'm so happy to be going through it with all of you, both here and in the chat. So thank you for joining us for the Animation Exchange 2022. We can't wait to see you online or all the year, and of course next year at Animation Exchange 2023. We out!